Where does your team get involved with new build? Because in my experience and 30 years in health and safety, 30 years involved in putting right problems that architects and engineers have dreamt up. Where does your team get involved?
Well, probably the answer to that is not early enough at times, because it's the engagement from the project groups, and often we're called into projects when they've gone down quite a long route, and then it becomes very expensive to make.
Probably when they're doing the room data sheets, yeah?
That's, and they almost want sign off. They got to the end of the project, oh yeah, we better have the health and safety guys coming on to do that. Yeah. So they want us to tick a box at the end of the day, which is totally appropriate. Yeah, and then it's our fault because, oh, safety want this, safety want that, tipping on. And that unfortunately,
the laboratory design has not changed in 100 plus years. I mean, it's if you've got your architectural head on, it will still be peninsula benching.
Well, what we've tried to do in GSK now, we call them sort of flexi labs, and that's actually worked quite well because we've thought about ergonomic design for the flexi lab. So ultimately, we've hammered on someone's door long enough in capital projects for them to actually take note of what's required. So that actually works sort of better now than it did, but it's still the bespoke projects at times we just don't get involved in early enough.
Are you happy about the level of reporting of ergonomic issues and challenges?
No.
We find there's an awful lot of under-reporting.
Most definitely.
How are you tackling that?
Ultimately, it's a question of we think it's got to be awareness. The people out there have to be aware of the sort of problems that poor ergonomics causes. So, I mean, for example, what we're doing, we're having road shows. So we'll have a road show for the general populace, certainly at least once a year. We have road shows for the guys who work as DSE facilitators. And of course it's the training that we do as well. So online training, and it points to the fact, well, if you've been lifting a box, maybe you've got a sort of tweak of injury, you've got to go and sort of report that to the professionals, get someone involved. But it's not easy to do, and we don't have a solution.
Are you working from the top down also? Because I've been made aware there are certain issues where people are, especially in changing circumstances, shall we say, in the last few years, that people are not reporting because they worry about job security, basically. So we have to tackle it from a management's point of view, down as well as awareness up.
See, what we've found as well is that there's under-reporting because certain people are hired as contractors. They're not given any holiday, they're not given any sick pay, and if they say they have a problem, they're not fit for the task. Oh, well, we've broken our contract, we want another one. That type of approach that management have, unfortunately, which is absolutely shocking, but if you're not careful, we can be in that sort of environment. So what we've tried to do about that is recently we've got a sort of new regime in place for our own occupational health department, engage with the company who provide the contractors, and that way there will be not supervision so much as, but there'll be sort of two-way sort of discussions with that external group providing it, and also the individuals who are working for it, and they can come to our own occupational health department as well. So that does help, but again, not a perfect solution.
Bob, is it worth mentioning the behavioural safety programme that we're rolling out? So behavioural safety, where we're looking at very specifically training out the behaviours that we would expect both of the employees, so from the bottom up, but also there's a set of behaviours that we'd expect from the managers as well. And I think really that is quite a big new drive that we're having. To address some of that issues with the under-reporting, with the walking past an issue, so we're sort of raising awareness that way.
And the idea is we have a programme called Living Safely, and there's a sort of a judgment of, and what happens is initial questionnaire that people would do, and I think we're sort of moving to, we're doing that sort of online now, and the idea is that you'll put people into sort of various groups, so there'll be the employees, there'll be the supervisors, and the managers, so you get them sort of report back, and you ask them questions about what they think about the safety culture. And then ultimately you'll get a score between 1 and 5. So 1's very poor, 5 is very good indeed. And you get not only a score, but you get areas that require improvement. And so you have an action list, and you put together that action list, and from there then you sort of build on. So I mean that's certainly quite a key initiative that we're doing now as well.
Just leading on from your identifying the issues, I wonder then where you would use influence to, when you give people guidance and you tell them or you suggest to them that they can change their practices and they choose not to listen, or do you have any strategy for influencing people who you can see will have issues, because you can't stand over them and say, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong.
Well, that's where we need at times to impress the management that there is, so essentially discipline side of things as well, where obviously there's verbal warning, there's a written warning, and then beyond that as well. So there is an HR mechanism for people who constantly disregard the rules. And there is variation, because I talked about it in the R&D community as such, that it's so many various sort of business groups. So various business groups, there's quite a bit of sort of difference in terms of compliance and abidance with health and safety regimes. Probably what we'd sort of say is that that the environments that are quite high risk, there's good compliance to health and safety, but it's often in the areas that aren't such quite high risk that come back to bite you big time. That's what we've sort of found.
I've got an interesting question, I suppose, to Robert as well, is that I think it's a two-step approach. I think safety has got the focus because of the nature of what they do and the hazardous substances they're dealing with, but the softer side of it, the ergonomic side of it, is a more difficult one to tackle. And one of the points I have is there a specific driver that said to you, Robert, to your team, that ergonomics is important, we'll go down this route and we'll take this approach, with the improvement teams and so on, or because very often the perception against the management taking this program on board is a perception that there's going to be a significant cost involved at the end of it. So if we have to go in and retrofit equipment, instrumentation, it's going to it's not something we don't want to go down that route, because we've never had an issue. The number of cases we get reported is very low, so we don't really have an issue, so why do we need to do it? And I think that's the approach we've certainly got, and the experience within our business is that the safety side is very good, people are very engaged, very focused on that, very happy to report issues, but the occupational health, ergonomics issues don't get the same level of report, and I agree part of that's education and awareness, but it's actually trying to get the senior management engaged in the first place to say, here's the resource and support you need to take this program, in a meaningful way down the line.
And that seems to be increasing as well because of the way the economy is, and people are worried. I don't know.
What we're doing is when we're evaluating the software, we're putting anything from 20 to 50 to 500 in some cases through the trial of the software free of charge, with the aim of demonstrating a return on investment. What I often find is when I present certainly the software side to organisations, it's making your lives easier, it's promoting a good ergonomics program, but convincing senior management is difficult. So when I'm presenting, it's a captive audience, they love the software, it's making their lives easier, but if we can demonstrate a return on investment, which is based on lost in productivity, you can go to somebody and say, not only is this a good program, is it going to give us a proper ergonomics program, but also it can potentially save us X amount of pounds, then it puts you in a much, much stronger position to get that on board. It's something I was going to pick up, but I'm conscious that we won't have time for everybody to have a look at either the lab workers for existing clients or potentially the DSE course for new clients. But if anybody did want to have a link sent over to have a look at the course or even trial it, people kind of look at me when we say we'll offer you a free trial of the software, no commitment on your behalf. They think, oh yeah, salesperson, there's nothing for free, but it is totally free to do it. It's not selfless because we are trying to prove that it will work, but we're getting some really, really big results, particularly with some of the larger clients. We're looking at 6-figure return on investments, because if people are less productive within their working environment, then there's a physical value to your business. And we're finding that really, really helps us to get it kind of escalated to senior management quite early in the process, as opposed to getting it batted back purely on a cost basis, given the financial climate as it is currently. So that's something worth looking at anyway from the trial and software side.